Thank you very much, Harmons. How are we doing? Are the chairs comfortable enough? I'm starting to figure out that you found your place in this new sanctuary. And not many people still like the front rows, but they are making their ways there. It's kind of fun. I hope you're enjoying worshiping down here in a little different space, and maybe that will help us move forward. If you haven't been upstairs, a lot of work has happened in just a short amount of time, and a lot of work is going to continue to happen, but just peek your head in. The stage, the platform, and the chancel are all rebuilt, and that's where we're at. That's where we plan to be at, and we're moving forward, and soon we'll have our sound tech, and a new sound system will be installed, and a screen will be installed, and that will be phase 2. And then phase 3 will take care of itself. We'll let you know when that's going to happen. It's great to be in worship with you in this place this day. We're looking forward to our next week's worship. We're looking forward to next week, Homecoming Sunday. We have extra flyers at all the exits. So as you're leaving today, good morning, Brian, how are you? We have extra flyers at all the exits, so make sure you pick 1 or 2 up. Besides the one you have in your hand that you can hand out to folks. Maybe you'll be in the grocery store and have that in your purse and you go, oh, here's a friend, I can hand that out. Maybe you have a neighbor that you could walk next door to and say, we would like to invite you and your children next week to this. Maybe there's someone that has a relationship with this congregation that you have yet to see in a while, but you see every once in a while. Maybe you could extend a special invitation. Next week, we will pick up the Jacob story when he goes home. And therefore, we will experience homecoming, and we look forward to that. But let's not get too far ahead of the story. Last week, Jacob was wrestling, right? No, not wrestling. Was dreaming. Jacob was dreaming about God. And this promise was extended to him that had been extended to his grandfather and his father, that he will have many descendants, and from those descendants will come a strong nation. Well, today in our story, we're going to understand a little bit more about those descendants, those children that will be his. We will understand a little bit more about his life, which was not easy. Sometimes not easy of his own doing, and sometimes not easy because of the people who are part of his own family. Let's pick up the scripture. It is in the bulletin if you'd like to read along. It comes from Genesis chapter 29, verses 15 to 20. Then Laban said to Jacob, because you are my kinsman, should you therefore serve me for nothing? Tell me, what shall your wages be? Now Laban had 2 daughters. The name of the elder was Leah, and the name of the younger was Rachel. Leah's eyes were lovely. She's not very pretty. Leah's eyes were lovely, and Rachel was graceful and beautiful. Jacob loved Rachel. So he said, I will serve you 7 years for your younger daughter Rachel. Laban said, it is better that I give her to you than I should give her to any other man. Stay with me. So Jacob served 7 years for Rachel, and they seemed to him but a few days, because of the love he had for her. May God add blessing and understanding to the hearing of these words. I was talking with the children about practical jokes. Have you seen any of that on the internet? Do you see any of those practical jokes in your Facebook feed? There are a couple that I have found that I thought were pretty funny. There are these religious people, and they're religious because they look like Catholic priests and nuns, and they are in a park, and there is kind of a little pond in the park, and they are having a baptismal ceremony. And in the process of it, they baptize, and then the priest turns and kind of forgets, and all these passerbyers are like, and there's all this flailing, and the priest, and there's oxygen down there that this person's breathing through, and the people are walking by, and one of the persons is so moved that she jumps in to try to save the baptismal candidate, and everybody goes, haha, we got you. And most of the people laugh, and it's kind of funny. I thought it was kind of funny. Maybe it's a visual thing and you have to go watch it. There's another. How many people did I just make nervous? There's another where Mary in a Catholic church is standing very solemn. And you think it's a statue, but it's actually a person. And just below her feet are the candles that people will come to light. And there's only one candle left to light. And so someone comes in and they're very solemn and they light the candle. And all of a sudden Mary's foot moves and stamps out the candle. And there's a nun standing over there and the person's like, and the nun is like, oh my gosh! And then they all get it. And they laugh, and it's fun, and it's interesting. There are other jokes that I've seen on TV shows. In the old day, Candid Camera, those of you in the old days, not on the internet, Candid Camera seemed to be okay. You know, seemed to be okay. Seemed like there was a lot of laughing with Candid Camera. And even today, you know, she is a little older. Betty White's little show that she's had on the last couple of years, there seems to be a lot of laughing with. But there have been other shows that have been out in the last few years. I know, I don't know what's going on. I'm on and I'm green. That doesn't mean anything to you guys. Tim, let's go to the hand joke.
Is this a practical joke?
It is a practical joke and the joke's on me. Laugh with me, not at me. Betty White's show seems to have a lot of laughing with. But there have been a couple of shows. There's another show called, younger folks will know these, Impractical Jokes, and Punk'd by Ashton Kutcher. That's not on as much as it used to be, but Punk'd by Ashton Kutcher was a lot of famous people playing jokes on famous people. And they got mean, like really mean, and harsh, and it seemed like we enjoy laughing at. I think that in our new age, we've lost a lot of interpersonal relationship, and we sometimes forget what's appropriate. We'll talk about that a little bit more. But in our story today, we get that. We're going to get a lot of inappropriate relationship, and there's going to be a lot of tricks. And the tricker will become the tricky. And we wonder, how is it that God will choose to work through people like that? In our scripture reading, we heard that Jacob falls in love with Rachel. Leah had lovely eyes. But he falls in love with the younger and beautiful Rachel. It's not the first time he's seen her. It's not the first time that he's been in her presence. When he comes into his uncle's land, he comes upon a well, and when he comes to the well, there are some sheep farmers who are there to uncover the well and then to water their flock, but they wait until everybody gets there. And so they open it once, everybody goes and they cover it up, and it's just easier to do that in community. When Rachel gets there with the few sheep that she has brought, her cousin, Jacob, uncovers the well and takes care of her sheep for her. And then he explains to her who he is, and she says, oh my goodness, we're related. Come with me, I'll take you to your uncle Laban, the man whom you've come to see. And so he goes and they have this conversation, and it seems to go very fast. These stories go very fast here in Genesis. He goes from meeting his uncle to his uncle saying, well, you can't stay here for free. I gotta pay you. You can't just sit on my couch. I'm not sure they had couches back then. And I'm not gonna have you work for free. So tell me, what will your wages be? This will happen several times in the this course of this relationship between Laban and Jacob, Laban will say, well, we need to renegotiate your terms. What will? And every time it's up to Jacob to set the terms of employment, and so he does. Every time. And so this time, he says, you know what? I love her. I want her. I will work 7 years. She must have been beautiful. I would work 7 years for you, Ann, by the way. I will work 7 years for her. And they agree. It's a contract. It is, by law, ready to go. Maybe you know what happens at the end of 7 years. He comes up to his uncle and he says, all right, I'm ready to be married. Give your daughter to me. And he says, okay. And wedding ceremonies back then weren't as complicated or as expensive as they are now. And really were not a whole lot more than the wedding night. So he goes to his tent, and his bride comes to him. And they consummate the marriage. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge, you know what I mean. The next morning, he wakes up, and he says, this is not Rachel. This is Leah. And he is angry. Maybe as angry as Esau was with him. And he runs out to his uncle and he says, what did you do? You tricked me. Why did you do this to me? You know that I was supposed to marry Rachel, but you have given me Leah. And he says, I don't know what happens in your part of the world, but here, in the world where your family was born, we don't give the younger daughter away before we give the older daughter away. It's not our custom, it's not our tradition. And Jacob says, but, and Laban says, well, you're married now. But do this, finish your week. Finish your week with her. I don't know exactly what all that meant, but I think it meant getting to know your wife and setting your house in order and taking care of business. Finish your week, and then next week, I'll give you Rachel. And then you work for another 7 years. I think we sometimes confuse that. We think he had to work another 7 years before he got to get married to Rachel. That's not what it was. In 2 weeks, 2 wives. That seems a bit much. In 2 weeks, 2 wives, and then he has to promise to work another 7 years. And he does. And he is in love. He is in love with Rachel. And God sees that he's in love with Rachel. And so God closes, as the story goes, closes the womb of Rachel and makes Leah very fertile. And so Leah will provide children while Rachel will not. And Rachel gets very frustrated with that. And she starts to complain to Jacob, give me a son. Don't just give me a child. Give me a son. And Jacob's like, am I God? I'm not the one who's done this to you. And so she says, well then, take my servant. And then he has children with Rachel's servant. And then Leah has stopped having children at this point, and there's a lot of jealousy between these two girls. They're sisters, so there's normal jealousy. But now we have sisters sharing a husband, and the jealousy is intensified. And so in the process she says, well, if she gives her maid, I'll give my maid. And so then he has children with Leah's maid. And then God remembers Rachel. And Rachel will have a child. His name is Joseph. All in all, during the course of this time, we get 11 children. Over the course of 20 years, the 7, and then the 7 more, and then the 6 we haven't talked about yet. Over the course of this time, we'll get 11 children born to these 4 women and to Jacob. There will be one more. Benjamin, Ben-Hameen. If I were really, truly Jewish, that would have sounded much better. We will get another child still to be born from Rachel, the 2 youngest and the 2 favorites of Jacob will be from the favorite wife. It's another story for another day. At the end of 14 years, Jacob comes to his uncle and he says, "Let me go." Just like Moses says, "Let my people go," same kind of verbiage, same kind of language. He comes to his uncle and says, "Let me go to the home of my father. Let me go back home. It's time. I've been here long enough. It's time for me to get back to my roots. I've been given the promise. I've been given the blessing. I've made a connection with God on my way to visit you. It's time for me to go back with the help of my God." And Laban, the tricker, says, "Not yet. You're too valuable to me." See, he's had a divination. He's had connection with the spirit world that says, "You've gotten rich off the work of this man Jacob." And so he says, "I need to keep him around then. If this is the cause of my success, I need to keep him around." So he keeps him around for another 6 years. They make an agreement, and the agreement is that the weaker animals, the less good animals, the animals that are seen as not going to build your flock and not going to provide you wealth, those are the animals that Jacob contracts with Laban to keep. They are the speckled and the striped sheep and the black goats. And so Laban is over here shaking hands with Jacob while telling all of his other sons, "Go get all of those and take them away." And in fact, they take away all the speckled and spotted sheep and all the black goats, and they go 3 days away. It would take Jacob 3 days traveling time to go find the... You know what? He works out another thing. He goes to the watering hole, and he gets these poplar rods, and he runs all the animals through those poplar rods. And they stripe the animals, and they speckle the animals. It was a myth in that day that if you just put those poplar rods close to where the animals were mating, the animals would come out speckled and spotted and striped. But Jacob would only put those rods with the good animals, the strong animals. So he's building this strong herd, probably not the right word, flock, that's the word I'm looking for, while Laban is getting a weaker, less significant flock. This happens for several years. I told you, the one who had been tricked becomes the one who does the tricking. Laban's sons are like, "You're stealing from our dad." Jacob begins to understand that he's not in Laban's favor anymore. And so he decides it's time to go. It is time to go. He brings his wives together in the field. He doesn't do this when anybody could hear or anybody could tell. He brings them together in the field. And he says to them, "Look, you know that your dad has changed my wages 10 times. You know that he's treated me unfairly. You know that he hasn't been right with me, and we need to go." I wonder if he thought they would disagree with him and that he needed to convince them. But they both said, "You know what? He's done all those things to you. He's done all those things to us. He's not taking care of us either. So let's go." The commentators took that a bit farther than I would have. They talk about how Laban has been abusive to his daughters in some way. And when we use that word, it's so sharp and it means so much. And I'm not so sure I can read that into the scripture, but you get the sense that what the commentators are trying to say is that Laban has not treated his daughters well. And so because of that, they're ready to go. And so they pack up and they leave in the middle of the night during one of the busiest times around the farm. It takes people 3 days to even notice that they're not there. Now, we think of our neighborhoods, especially if you live in town. But think about living farther away in a rural society. It's not hard for us to imagine because we've driven to those places where you can see a house and then not see another house for another mile or two. That's more what it was like for them. They lived in tents. It was easy to pack up and move as the flocks needed to go find other places to water and to feed. And so during this busy time, they were probably already very distant and they were able just to escape pretty easily. It takes 7 days for Laban to catch up. He has reasons to try to catch up, but they're really unimportant to our story. When it's all said and done, they sit down at table together. They reconnect. We would say they have communion. They make promises, and they part amicably. A lot of deception, a lot of thievery, and a lot of trickery. I ask you, in our world, how is it that we are tricked today? Well, depending on who you listen to, you will hear that one nation is all evil. You will hear that one way of doing government is all evil. You will hear that nationalities and races are wrong. You will hear that all police officers are crooked. You will hear that those who succumb to the disease of mental illness are going to hell. And that was just this week. On any given day, you will hear that one political party is always wrong and that one is always right. You will hear that one leader of a given party is always wrong and should not be followed. You will hear things that will drive to separate us from other people. You will hear that that side of the aisle is always wrong, so we should never step across and extend a hand. And I'm not talking about just one side or the other. Both sides will say the same about the other. We are trying, intentionally it seems, in this media-driven world to drive a wedge. Have you ever looked at the end of a political story on whatever website you like to look at and read people's comments? How harsh are they? But when you put that out there, you don't know anybody. You're not interacting with anyone. You can drive that wedge, you can be as rude and as harsh as you want to be. But the trick's on us. No matter how selfish we might be, no matter how deceitful we might be, no matter how difficult we may make this life, God continues to break in and say, it doesn't matter. I can still show you a better way. I can still come to you and help you to know that there are ways different than this. I can help you know faith. And in bringing you faith, you can live it. As I live faith for you, you can live faith for others. I choose you. Just as God has chosen Jacob in our story, God chooses us. And are we perfect? No, we're not. But once we hear that call, we have to do something. We can't stay in the same place. We have to move one way or another. God is leading us, and so we have to follow that lead. We have to take a step. We have to take a step toward home. Tony Campolo tells a story of a man who was a sage in his community. And when people came to him, he almost always knew the answers to their questions. There was a group of unruly young men who decided that they would try to trick the master. And so they come to him, and before they have this little gathering, and this one boy says, I'm going to get a bird, and I'm going to put it in my hand behind my back, and I'm going to go to the master, and I'm going to say, oh, teacher, what do I have in my hand? And if he says, I have a bird, I'm going to ask a second question. Is the bird alive? or is it dead? And if he says the bird is dead, I'll open my hand and let the bird fly away. But if he says that the bird is alive, I will crush it and then show him that the bird is dead. Either way, I will be able to prove that he does not know everything and that he can be wrong. So he gets an audience with the teacher. And he says, "Oh, master, what do I have in my hand?" "A bird." "Yes, but oh, master, is the bird alive or dead?" After a few moments of consideration, the teacher says, "My son, the answer is in your hand." Campolo says that the same is true of us. Then when it comes to the ways of faith, God will extend that faith to us, and will we accept it? Will we reach out for it? He says, the answer is in our hands. In the midst of all the things that bring you down, and in the midst of not being perfect, in the midst of trying to escape the world who tells you to be selfish and that things should be all about you, God will come to you. And will you receive the invitation to be faithful? The answer, my friend, is in your hands.